I want to start today with something most people never say plainly. Most women who lose the man they love did not do anything obviously wrong. They were not cruel, they were not neglectful. They loved sincerely, showed up consistently, and still, slowly, quietly, something shifted. He became distant, the warmth thinned. The connection that once felt solid began to feel like something she was holding together by herself. And the most painful part? She had no idea why. In 12 years of working in relationship health and emotional wellness, I have sat with hundreds of couples navigating this exact experience. And what I have discovered consistently, across age groups and backgrounds, is that the disconnection almost always traces back to the same root cause. Not a lack of love, not incompatibility, not age. Three specific emotional needs that men carry quietly, deeply, often without the language to name them, that are going unmet. Not because the women in their lives do not care, but because nobody ever explained what these needs actually are or why they matter so profoundly. My name is Dr. Nerita, and today I am going to explain them clearly, honestly, with the kind of clinical depth that turns confusion into understanding. And if you are a woman watching this who loves an older man or wants to, this may be the most useful conversation you ever have about him. Before we begin, please hit the like button right now, subscribe if you have not already, and drop a comment telling me where in the world you are watching from. This community is extraordinary, and I love knowing who is here. Let us begin. Here's the myth I want to address before we go any further. When people talk about what men need in relationships, the conversation usually stays on the surface. Respect, admiration, physical affection, a little space now and then. And yes, all of those things matter, but they are descriptions of behavior, not explanations of need. They tell you what to do without telling you why it works. And without understanding why, even the most loving woman can do everything she has been told and still miss what her partner is actually craving. Here is what 12 years of clinical work has taught me about men in the second half of their lives specifically. By the time a man reaches his 60s, something fundamental has shifted in his emotional landscape. The drives and distractions that kept him moving through his younger decades' career ambition, physical energy, the noise of building a life have quieted. And in that quiet, three needs that were always present but always buried rise to the surface with an urgency he often does not know how to express. These are not simple preferences. They are deep biologically and psychologically grounded needs. And when they go unmet, even in a relationship that is otherwise loving and stable, a man begins to withdraw in ways that look confusing from the outside, but make complete sense once you understand what is happening. Beneath, that is what we are going to explore right now. Need number one, emotional safety, the space to be fully human. Let me ask you something. Have you ever watched a man you love go quiet, not in anger, not in indifference, but in a way that felt like he was retreating somewhere you could not follow? And no matter what you said or asked, the door seemed to close a little further? That silence has a name, and it is not what most people think it is. Most men of this generation, men who grew up in households and cultures where emotional expression was discouraged, sometimes actively punished, learned early to associate vulnerability with danger. Not physical danger, social danger. The danger of being seen as weak, of losing dignity, of changing the way someone important sees you. And so they became extraordinarily skilled at one thing, containing themselves, managing what they showed, presenting strength even when the inside felt anything but strong. By 60, that habit is decades deep. And the fear underneath it, the fear that honesty about struggle or sadness or confusion might cost them the respect of the woman they love, does not fade with age. If anything, it intensifies, because the stakes feel higher, because there is less time, because dignity at this stage of life feels harder won and more fragile than it ever did before. Biologically, chronic emotional suppression is genuinely damaging. When a man habitually holds back authentic emotional expression, his stress hormone cortisol remains chronically elevated. His nervous system stays in a low-grade state of vigilance, and over time, this suppression creates distance not just from his partner, but from his own inner life. What he needs, what he is often desperately hoping for without being able to ask, is a relationship where this does not have to happen, where he can put down the performance, where a moment of genuine feeling, uncertainty, grief, fear, tenderness does not cost him anything in her eyes, where he can simply be a full human being with all the complexity that entails and know that her regard for him will not shift. I worked with a patient in his late 60s, a former engineer, precise and composed in everything he did, who told me that the moment he realized he loved his partner was not a dramatic one. It was the moment he said something honest about a fear he had been carrying for 2 years, and she did not fix it, did not minimize it, did not look alarmed. She just sat with him in it, quietly, fully present. He told me, "It was the first time in my adult life I said something real and did not immediately wish I had not." That is emotional safety. Not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of a witness who makes honesty feel safe. When a man finds this, something physiological actually happens. His cortisol drops, his oxytocin rises, his nervous system moves from vigilance into genuine rest. And from that place of rest, he becomes more open, more present, more emotionally available, not because he has been pushed to be, but because the conditions finally support it. When this need goes unmet, he does not become angry. He becomes quietly absent. He retreats into the familiar safety of silence, and the relationship loses something essential, not suddenly, but gradually, like warmth leaving a room when no one notices the window is open. Need number 2, space without suspicion, the freedom to reset. This is the one that causes the most confusion and the most unnecessary pain. Here is something I want you to understand as clearly as possible. When a man withdraws into silence or solitude, it is almost never about you. I know that is hard to believe at the moment, because the silence arrives and the mind rushes to fill it. Did I say something wrong? Is he pulling away? Does he still want this? And the natural response to that fear is to reach toward him, to ask questions, to check in, to make sure everything is okay. The intention is love. The impact for him is pressure. And pressure applied to a man who is already emotionally overloaded does not open him up, it closes him further. Here is the neuroscience behind what is actually happening. Men and women, on average, process emotional stress differently, and this difference is documented extensively in neurological research. When stress accumulates, the male brain tends to seek a reduction in external input, quiet, solitude, repetitive low-stimulation activity, as a way of allowing the prefrontal cortex to re-regulate and restore executive function. This is not avoidance. It is literally how the male nervous system recovers. After 60, this need intensifies. The resilience of the nervous system has changed, recovery takes longer, the emotional noise of the outside world feels louder, and the man who once could push through and stay present now genuinely needs more time in that restorative quiet before he can return fully. What does this look like practically? It might be an hour in the garage, a walk around the neighborhood alone, sitting in a chair with no particular purpose, watching something mindless. Whatever creates that reduction in stimulation, that is the reset happening. And when it is allowed, truly allowed, without interpretation or interrogation afterward, he comes back different, softer, more available, more genuinely present than he could have been if he had been asked to stay engaged through the overload. I once worked with a couple in their 70s. The husband had a habit, during difficult weeks, of spending an hour in the backyard each evening doing nothing in particular. His wife, early in their relationship, had found this troubling. She read it as withdrawal, as a symptom of something wrong between them. But over time, she began to simply let it be. No questions when he came back, no accumulated anxiety greeting him at the door, just warmth. He told me that her willingness to trust his solitude without turning it into a problem was one of the primary reasons he felt closer to her than anyone he had ever known. "She gives me room to find myself," he said, "and because of that, I always find my way back to her." The women who understand this, who can hold their own center while he holds his, and not interpret his distance as abandonment, become profoundly magnetic to men at this stage of life. Because what they are offering is something extraordinarily rare, the freedom to be whole, rather than the pressure to be constantly present. Here is the honest question worth sitting with. Have you ever mistaken his need for silence as a sign that something was wrong between you? Drop your experience in the comments. Your honesty might help someone else understand their own relationship more clearly. Need number 3, respect and being chosen, the 2 things that keep his heart open. This final need is actually 2 deeply connected things, and I want to address them both, because missing either one quietly extinguishes something essential in a man. The first is respect, and I want to define this carefully, because the word gets used loosely. For a man in his 60s or 70s, respect is not about manners or deference, It is about something far more specific, the felt experience of being trusted, of having his judgment acknowledged, of being able to make a decision large or small and feel that the woman beside him believes he is capable of making it well. Research from relationship psychologists, including the extensive work of Dr. John Gottman, consistently shows that men are more likely to emotionally withdraw from a relationship not when they feel unloved, but when they feel chronically doubted, when decisions are second-guessed habitually, when a suggestion is always followed by a counter-suggestion, when he senses in the texture of daily interaction that his competence is quietly in question. When that happens, something in him begins to disengage. Not dramatically, he does not slam doors or make declarations. He simply stops offering, stops initiating, stops bringing the fullness of himself to the relationship because experience has taught him that whatever he brings will be quietly redirected. Biologically, chronic feelings of being disrespected or dismissed activate the same threat response pathways as physical danger. Cortisol elevates, the bonding hormone oxytocin declines, and the man who might have been warm and engaged becomes, over time, mechanical, present in body, absent in spirit. What restores him is not grand affirmation. It is small, consistent, genuine trust expressed in ordinary moments. Asking his opinion and genuinely considering it, allowing him to handle something his way, even if it is not the way you would have done it. Saying, in whatever words feel natural, I trust you. And meaning it. When a man feels genuinely trusted by the woman he loves, something unlocks. His voice steadies. His affection becomes more spontaneous. His generosity expands. Because trust is the language his heart understands most fluently. And then there is the second part of this need, the one that is harder to talk about, but perhaps even more important. He wants to be chosen, not needed, not tolerated, not kept around for the practical stability he provides. Chosen for who he is beneath all of that. After 60, many men have lived long enough to know the difference and to feel, sometimes acutely, when they are wanted versus when they are simply useful. When a man senses that he is primarily valued for what he provides financially, practically, as a source of companionship or security, something in him quietly grieves. He continues. He shows up, but a light dims. When he feels genuinely chosen, when the message he receives in word and action and quality of presence is that she wants him specifically, not the role he fills, but him, everything changes. His tenderness deepens. His devotion becomes the kind that is not contingent on circumstances. He becomes, in the fullest sense of the word, present. Not because the relationship is easy, but because he knows, in his bones, that he matters to her in a way that could not simply be transferred to someone else. This is what loyalty at this stage of life is built on. Not a habit, not dependency. The knowledge that he was seen, really seen and chosen anyway. Let me bring this into practical territory. For emotional safety this week, notice one moment when he seems to be moving towards sharing something real. And rather than responding with advice or reassurance, simply stay quiet and present. Let your silence be an invitation, not an absence. See what he does with the space. For space without suspicion, the next time he goes quiet or retreats, practice naming it differently in your own mind. Not he is pulling away from me, but he is resetting. And when he is done, he will come back. Hold your own center while he finds his. Trust the return. For respect and being chosen, find one genuine, specific thing you trust about him, his judgment, his character, his way of handling something, and tell him, not as flattery, as honest acknowledgement. And then ask yourself whether the way you engage with him daily communicates that you want him, not just what he provides. These are not dramatic gestures. They are quiet, consistent shifts in how you show up. And for a man who has spent decades hoping for exactly this, their impact is extraordinary. I want to say something clearly to every woman watching this who has loved an older man and felt at some point like she was trying to reach someone who had disappeared behind glass. He is not cold, he is not indifferent, and he is almost certainly not falling out of love. He is a man who learned, over a lifetime, to protect what was most tender in him, who built walls not out of cruelty but out of necessity, who has been waiting, sometimes without knowing it, for a relationship safe enough to finally lay those walls down. The three needs we explored today, emotional safety, space without misinterpretation, and the twin gifts of respect and genuine choosing are his way back to you. They are the conditions under which the warmth he has been holding returns to the surface. You cannot force that warmth, but you can create the conditions for it. And when you do, when he finally feels safe enough to be fully himself, the man you get in return is worth every moment of patience it took to reach him. Love in the later decades of life is not quieter than what came before. It is deeper. It is chosen with eyes wide open. It is built not on the urgency of youth, but on the hard-won wisdom of people who know what matters. The three needs we have explored today, emotional safety, the freedom to reset, and the dignity of being respected and genuinely chosen, these are not small requests. They are the foundation of the kind of love that lasts, that grows, that becomes, over years, the most valuable thing either person has. And the extraordinary thing is that meeting these needs asks nothing impossible of you. It asks for presence over performance, for trust over control, for patience with his silence and intention in your choosing. Those things are within your reach, starting today. If this conversation gave you something clarity, recognition, or simply the reassurance that you are not alone in trying to understand the man you love, please like this video right now and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe so you never miss the honest, thoughtful relationship and health content I put out every week. Leave me a comment. Tell me where you are watching from. Tell me which of these three needs surprised you most. I read every single one, and I mean that. This is Dr. Nerita reminding you that the love you are trying to build is absolutely worth building. He is worth understanding, and so are you.